Hello there, Dr. Dorothy, and welcome to Fireside Chats. My story today asks a question. Can you love someone too much? This is a true story. One of the hardest things for being a military wife was being transferred here, there, and all over the world, and far away from family and lifelong friends. I was very close to my birth family, and my mother in particular anguished that we had to live so far away. I made a great effort throughout our career to go home as often as I could. And even when we were stationed abroad, we'd get home at least once a year, if not twice a year. But she still would say things like, why does it have to be my daughter? Why do you have to be, my other friends have their daughters close by. Why does it have to be my daughter? And every second counted to her. It was important. Even going back, picking me up at the airport and taking me back to the airport to fly out, she wanted to be there, in Houston traffic, because it was Houston, Texas. So that's how important it was to her. Well, I have a military friend who just lost her dad. And they were home from Germany. They're currently posted in Germany. And she posted about how glad she was that they got to be home for spring break. And the children got to see their grandfather, and she saw her father, and how much that meant to him. Of course, they didn't know he was going to pass away, but they'd only be gone a couple of days, and he suddenly was gone. So they really treasured that time they had together. In my case, my mother had some kidney issues from years of treatment that had affected her kidneys. And she was on dialysis, and she turned jaundice. And we were living in Washington, D.C. at the time. So my brother took her to the hospital, and they did a bunch of tests, and they came back and said that the jaundice was caused by pancreatic cancer. And that they asked her, did she want to be treated? She chose not to be. And then she asked her kidney specialist if, how long does someone generally live if they stop dialysis and just would live this out, because she didn't want to deal with pancreatic cancer. And his answer to her was about 10 days maximum. And that was her choice. So we all respected that, and we knew that we had a week to 10 days, if not another day or two, if she was gifted with that, for her to live. So we made use of that time, said things that needed to be said, but right toward the end, she was in so much pain that they had put her on morphine. She'd been on morphine for a couple of days to tolerate the pain. And the hospice nurse came by to see her. And she was sitting by the bed, and I was sitting by Mother's bed, holding her hand. And the hospice nurse asked her, Miss Guy, what was your most wonderful thing in your life? And her answer, without hesitation, even though she was on the medication, was my family, being married to Lawrence and Dorothy and Bert's mother. And then she said, and what was the worst thing that happened to you in your life? And I assumed immediately, it just came in my mind, that her answer would be losing our first baby at 10 months old. And it was a little girl. So she suddenly had pneumonia, and she died in their arms, taking her to the emergency room. I assumed that, she was only around 20, 21 years old at that time. And I figured that would be her answer when our baby died. That's not what she answered. She, without hesitation, answered when Dorothy went to Saudi Arabia. And I almost lost it. I didn't know what to say. To think that her anguish, her level of anguish for the worst thing that happened in her life was when we went to a posting abroad, and we would be that far away, was the worst thing that ever happened to her, to include losing her dad when she was only 10 years old, and he had a sudden heart attack, and she was the only one in the house at the time. That was not her answer. It was when we went to Saudi Arabia. And so I was devastated. I mean, it still haunts me that her answer was that. And so one of my lessons is, can you hold on to someone too tight? Can you love someone too much? Because even though I was reluctant to go into the Middle East, for many reasons, most of it was lack of knowledge or understanding about that part of the world, it ended up being a great growth experience for me. And, I had been sharing that with my parents when I was there. It was just so painful for her to turn loose and celebrate that growth. So if it's with your kids, if it's with your spouse, if it's with someone that you just love dearly, my message to you, one of my favorite sayings is, if you love something, set it free. If it returns to you, it's yours. And if not, it never was. Don't hold on too tight. Celebrate the growth in the people you love. Her intent and her heart were pure, so there's no judgment there. But it's very hard to look back and realize we often were abroad or we were somewhere across the country, and she anguished about that to that extent. So let them go, set them free, celebrate their growth, and I'll see you next Fireside Chat.